Well, I want to welcome everyone who's here today and thank you all for coming. My name's Doug Colbert. I'm the director of the Access to Justice Clinic, and I'm one of the faculty members at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law that has the privilege of teaching law students and preparing them for the practice of law. And one of the things we emphasize is providing students with an understanding of their professional responsibility to enhance the administration of justice. And I think you'll hear today about a student-initiated project called the Warrant Second Chance Program that gives people an opportunity to return to the legal system, that people who had missed their court dates and who have failure to appear warrants now have the opportunity of removing those warrants, getting a new trial date, and facing their misdemeanor nonviolent criminal charges. I think you'll notice that the people behind me are the principal players in our city's pretrial justice system. And it's quite unusual, in my opinion, to find this type of collaboration where you have the state's attorney of our city, you have the police commissioner, you have the district court judiciary, you have the Baltimore Public Defender's Office, you have the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, you have the Sheriff's Department. You have a group of people that, while the students may have initiated the idea, we would not be here today but for this extraordinary collaboration among the principal players in our city's pretrial justice system. And before I run through or explain to you what the program actually provides, let me give you some background so that you can understand and appreciate what the process has been over these 18 months in which we have been engaged in conversation and discussion. The Access to Justice Clinic, which I direct and supervise, provides students with the real-life experience of representing people who are in jail, charged with nonviolent misdemeanors, and they're in jail for one reason and one reason only. They cannot afford the money bail. So it's low-income working people, it's poor people accused of crime. And during the course of the students' representation, they became familiar with a long-standing problem in our city. And that is that there are thousands of people who live in fear of arrest 24/7 because they miss their court appearances. And you might ask, well, why do people miss court appearances? Actually, in our city, criminal defendants do a very good job of appearing. Roughly 93, 94% of people accused of crime make their court appearance, appear in court when required. But sometimes people do not come to court, and often their reason is a good reason. They fear losing a job, missing school, having daycare responsibilities. Sometimes illness prevents them from going to court, and they don't have someone else who can stand in for them and explain to the state's attorney and the judge the reason why they require a postponement. But everyone, all of the defendants share something in common. They're very fearful that by coming to court, they will receive a bail that they cannot afford, a money bail, and then they will spend the next 30 to 45 days in jail. And so students began to look at this issue of failure to appear warrants. And they began to understand that it wasn't just a program or an issue that benefited defendants, but it was an opportunity to do something that would actually lead to a more just, more efficient, more cost-effective pretrial justice system. And so they began to appreciate in having conversations with the state's attorney, the prosecutors, the police department, the public defenders, all of the different principal players, what it meant when we had these failure to appear warrants, and why it was creating a huge backlog of cases that made it very difficult for the judges to administer and efficiently run court. And what would it take to bring people back into a system? The notion that taxpayers are left paying the cost of unnecessary incarceration becomes a very important piece of the warrant second chance program. Because currently in our city, roughly 1/2 of the 2,200 people who are in our pretrial jails are there because of failure to appear warrants. So right away we begin from the idea that there may be unnecessary cost. We also have to appreciate the danger that's involved when police officers are serving warrants and arresting people often in their home. And we'd like to try to prevent both police and citizens from not being in harm's way when warrants are being served. And this program addresses it by giving people the opportunity of coming forward. We also understand that many of the principal players, I think, will refer to the importance of building improved relationships with community, because it's community that law enforcement counts on in making cases when the most serious and violent crime is committed in our city. All told, we look at our particular situation as one in which collaboration and ongoing conversation has made it possible to present an opportunity for people with warrants to come forward, to speak to a public defender, to gain the advice of counsel, and then to move a failure to appear warrant eventually before a prosecutor for review and approval, and ultimately to a judge who will be able to decide whether or not to recall the warrant and give someone another court date. In essence, right now there are thousands of people in our city who are caught between a rock and a hard place. They fear coming to court because they cannot risk spending the next 30 to 45 days in jail. Their family can't afford to lose them. When people are in jail, whatever they've come in with, often they don't have at the end of their jail period. And so the opportunity of taking advantage of warrant second chance is what brings us before you today. And I'd like to briefly, my introduction will be very brief, but I want to introduce you to some of the main players, the people who have been intimately involved with this idea ever since the law students first began arranging the meetings and having the conversations that took place last October of 2015. That's when it all began. First, let me introduce to you the Executive Director of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Kim Barranco. And Kim will explain what CJCC does and who they are and how they are involved in this warrant second chance proposal.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Baltimore City Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council is comprised of the 21 major state, federal, and local stakeholders for criminal justice matters in Baltimore City. The council supports the FTA Warrant Second Chance initiative, and at our last meeting in December, each member received a flyer and brochure about the program to distribute to their networks. This program would not have been possible without the collaboration of the circuit and district courts, the Office of the Public Defender, the state's attorney's office, the Baltimore Police Department, Pretrial Release Services, the Sheriff's Office, and the University of Maryland Access to Justice Law Clinic. Thank you to all of our partners for your hard work and effort in bringing this initiative to fruition.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I now want to introduce one of the co-attorneys-in-chief of the City Public Defender Office, Elizabeth Julian. And I just want to add that, and I'm sure Ms. Julian will explain, but the public defenders are invested in devoting many, many hours to both counseling people who are failure to appear warrant defendants, and also representing them. And so, Ms. Julian, would you please?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. I want to describe this program as a wonderful opportunity for the citizens of Baltimore with outstanding FTA warrants to remove a barrier that has kept them from full participation in the community. Many citizens have failed to appear and have outstanding warrants, are afraid, as Professor Colbert has explained, to report to even probation for fear of being arrested, further compromising their freedom in future litigation. Many citizens are afraid to even engage in other opportunities for the same reason. That's fear of arrest and being removed from their family, their job, and society. This month, people can come forward, and if they're eligible, they can engage in this process by speaking to an attorney from our office to begin the process to have the warrant recalled and to receive a new trial date. And that means not go to jail on the date that you seek this. If you're not eligible, then you'll get advice from us as attorneys, and you can go home and await the outcome or work on how to work that out. With our advice. Clients who qualify for public defender representation will also, we will be there to request a recall for the warrant, but also for the further court date involving that case. Judges are very supportive. If they're not here, so I wanted to especially point that out. We've been collaborating all along, and they're very supportive of recalling warrants in many of the minor charges, so that they can avoid arrest and any potential bail stemming from another arrest. A warrant recall means that you can get on with your life without fear of being arrested. If you come to our offices located at the 3 district court buildings where the court proceedings are held, we have offices there. If you come during normal business hours, we'll assist you with the process. We are in full support of the program, and we are committing our staff to taking on additional work to achieve this as a service to our clients and the community as a whole. Our city can only move forward by supporting the entire community. Thank you. Oh, I'm taking your notes. Sorry.
And I truly want to express my appreciation on behalf of the people who are public defender clients, that the public defenders are doing an unusually and extraordinary job of adding more work to their responsibilities. And I also just wanted to add that Ms. Julian made reference to the judiciaries. During most of our meetings that we've had the last few months, they've been held at the District Court Judiciary. Judge Waxman has kindly offered a conference room, and that's where our discussions have taken place. And the Maryland Chief Judge of the District Court, John Morrissey, also attended one of our critical meetings and has been in regular contact following the events quite closely. So none of this program would take place without the judicial review and approval. Next, I want to introduce our state's attorney for Baltimore City, Marilyn Mosby. And some of you might find unusual the fact that public defender and the state's attorney, who usually are in an adversarial situation, are both on board and strong supporters of the Second Chance program. And Ms. Mosby, why don't you come forward?
Good morning. This is impressive, isn't it? to have all of us here today, I want to first and foremost say thank you to Doug Colbert in the University of Maryland School of Law. For Doug, he has been steadfast in his commitment and his persistence to bring this program to fruition. And I thank him for that dedication, because you have quite an impressive array of people who are here all for the same purpose, the pursuit of justice. What I can say is that this program is just another example of that collaboration. And since I've taken office, I've always said that we needed to take a holistic approach to not just prosecution, but a holistic approach to public safety in Baltimore City. This is that holistic approach. We have to understand why crime takes place. We have to be able to break down those barriers of distrust within our communities, and this program is another example of doing just that. So again, I thank you, Doug, for your persistence. This program is a matter of judicial economy, and it's a system that will not only break down those barriers of distrust, but will rid the system of old FTA warrants for minor, nonviolent, and I repeat, nonviolent misdemeanor offenses, which allows all of us, and when I say all of us, I mean the police department, I mean the sheriff's department, I mean the state's attorney's office, the public defenders. It allows all of us to be able to focus on those offenders in the city that need to be off our streets. It gives these an opportunity for folks to no longer have this sort of barrier that's burdening them and not coming forward. So we appreciate the efforts and to alleviate the burden that's carried out by many members of our community for outstanding FTA warrants, freeing them to seek housing opportunities, freeing them to seek job opportunities. That's the holistic approach that we should all be taking when it comes to nonviolent misdemeanor offenses. This is not a forgiveness program, and I want to be clear about that. This is a second chance at an opportunity for those who have failed to appear in court to have their matters resolved without fear of penalty. And so again, I'm extremely impressed by the collaboration and those stakeholders who stand before you today. And a special thank you to Doug Colbert, the University of Maryland School of Law. Doug approached our office in the spring of 2016, and he has brought this program to fruition. Special thank you to the Baltimore Police Department and Commissioner Kevin Davis, Public Defender's Office, Elizabeth Julian, Chief Judge Morrissey, the Sheriff's Department, and of course the Baltimore City Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. So with that, I look forward to bringing and taking this approach and making our community safe. And I think this is one of the ways in which we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosby. And what's remarkable, truly remarkable, is that when agencies that usually find themselves on opposite sides of a question discover how much agreement they share in terms of how to promote a just and fair and efficient criminal justice system. We're very fortunate to have leadership that's represented by Ms. Mosby and our next speaker, Police Commissioner Davis. And I think this idea is one that really could not have happened without their courage, without their vision, without their ability to appreciate a shared view that there's a lot of violent crime that takes place in our city. And to the extent that resources can be spared, I think you'll begin to appreciate why this collaboration took place. Commissioner?
Thank you, and good morning, and Happy New Year. You know, if the old saying is true that victory belongs to the most persevering, Professor Doug Colbert is living proof of that. He has been persistent in a very professional way to get to where we are today. So it has been a journey, and I'm happy to be part of of this moment. And I think it's a moment that the city should really pause and recognize. I hope that the city does do that, and I'm sure that our media partners will see to it that they do. So now there are over 35,000 active warrants in the city of Baltimore today. About 6,800 of them are for failure to appear in court. First, like the state's attorney said, and most importantly, as we stand here today, this has nothing to do with violent offenders. Nothing to do with violent offenders. Violent offender warrants will remain a top priority for the BPD's Warrant Apprehension Task Force, and they work every day to apprehend violent offenders. The majority of these warrants we are discussing today are FTA warrants for offenses like traffic, shoplifting, disorderly conduct, and other minor offenses. BPD is the primary vehicle for the service of warrants in Baltimore. Most of the warrants that would be recognized in this program go unserved until there is an interaction between a patrol officer and the person who possesses the warrant. If they don't ever have an interaction with the police, they may live their entire lives in fear of being arrested for a nonviolent offense that they missed court for. This will allow them the opportunity to have a safe avenue to come to court, because if they enroll in the program and get their warrant recalled, they will have a new trial date and can then function in society without fear of that police encounter that will lead to their arrest. We believe this will reduce the tension that would have previously existed between people with those outstanding warrants and the police. The bottom line is that this program will get people into court to have their cases finally resolved, and that's a good thing. This is not a warrant forgiveness program and has no effect on the underlying crime. People are still being held accountable for their actions. This program will ensure the proper legal representation that they are entitled to and may have not had beforehand. All of this helps in BPD's goal to be more effective in our community policing by really fostering trust between law enforcement and the communities that we serve. This allows BPD to focus our resources on the number one priority for the city, and that's violent crime. So the BPD applauds the hard work of Professor Colbert and his students. They're to be commended. Job well done, and we look forward to being part of this program. We think it's long overdue, and can't thank you enough, Professor.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And one of the Commissioner's colleagues in law enforcement, Deputy Sheriff Kogan, also is somebody who responded with approval, and I would almost say enthusiastically, the idea of bringing people back into a system. That's the primary goal here. Too many people are living outside the system. Too many resources are being expended. So on many levels, this is a very sensible approach. And Sheriff, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, I would. Good morning. I'm Assistant Sheriff Sam Kogan, and the Sheriff's Office of Baltimore City and Sheriff John W. Anderson are really thrilled to be participating in this program. I'm going to be brief and use my time to speak directly to the people who may have these warrants, is that we want you to turn yourself in. We do not want to arrest you. We don't want to stop you on a traffic stop. We want you to come into the Public Defender's Office and have your warrant cleared. We implore you to do that. That would be the right thing to do. For us, it's the compassionate thing to do, to encourage you to do that. And that's what we would like to see today.
During the course of trying to circulate word of this program, we have relied extensively on the faith-based community. Last December, about 25 representatives, leaders of the faith-based community published a lengthy op-ed article in the Baltimore Sun. One of the true leaders of that endeavor is Pastor Todd Yeary, who is the pastor of the Baptist Memorial Douglas.
Remember your name, Douglas?
Yes, Douglas Baptist Memorial Church. Almost, right?
We almost.
Douglas Memorial Baptist Church is more accurate. I would like to ask Pastor Yeary to say a few words as well.
Good morning. Thank you, Professor Colbert, and we'll keep working on location and name. Just remember Douglas, your name, and then everything else that goes with it. Certainly let me add my congratulations and appreciation on behalf of my colleagues in the faith community for the work of the clinic and the students at Maryland Law, for the collaboration between the state's attorney, the police commissioner, the judiciary, and the public defender's office. In 2015, I actually served on the governor's pretrial commission and actually co-chaired the unintended consequences and collateral consequences subcommittee. And one of the things that we recognized and realized is that we needed to provide portals for folks to not only have to address the issue from a punitive side of the justice system, but also on restoration. And so faith community leaders decided that restoration ought to be part of our focus. We've got to provide opportunities and gateways for folks to address outstanding concerns that actually hinder their ability to be full participants in their community, in their families, and in our city. And so this effort, which is to be supported and actually encourage anyone that may have an outstanding failure to appear warrant to become part of the process, that redemption is one of the things that all of my colleagues, and it was not just from Christian communions, this was interfaith and interdenominational in its effort. And so we believe that we have to approach justice with a capital J. And this is one of those efforts. Certainly, I add my congratulations and appreciation to Chief Judge Morrissey and to all of the colleagues that you see standing here. We are excited to be supporters of this process, and we look forward to taking some of that pressure off of our partners in the law enforcement community and the stresses off of the judiciary to make sure that the issues we can address, we will address, and the faith community stands shoulder to shoulder ready to do our part. Again, we thank you, Professor Colbert, and we're looking forward to getting the work done.
And we conclude remarks today, and it's my pleasure to introduce one of my law school colleagues who's the director of the Maryland Clinical Program, Michael Pinard.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And this is a great way to start the new year. This program will give individuals the opportunities to resolve these warrants, to get the jobs and housing that State's Attorney Mosby mentioned, to move on with their lives and to live in the light. And so this program will not only benefit these individuals, but also their families and communities. This program is about being smart on crime and maximizing criminal justice resources. It involves the collaboration that's necessary to realize true justice. And this is the type of collaboration that enhances the law school's mission to access justice for those who otherwise would go without in Baltimore and in Maryland. And so we thank all of the community partners for their hard work over the last 16 months to make this vision a reality. We especially thank Elizabeth Julian from the Baltimore Office of the Public Defender, as well as Professor Colbert and his amazing students in the Access to Justice Clinic for taking the lead on this effort. We're deeply grateful to State's Attorney Mosby and Commissioner Davis for their leadership, their vision, and their support of this program, to Chief Judge Morrissey and Judge Waxman for marshaling the necessary judicial resources, and to Kim Barranco from the Baltimore Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and to Sheriff Hogan. This program is about all of these agencies and entities working together on behalf of justice and public safety here in Baltimore. A couple of words about Professor Colbert. You heard about his persistence and perseverance. So he and his students are part of the clinical law program at Maryland Carey Law. This program is a vital resource for the state. We provide tens of thousands of hours of free legal services each year to individuals, families, and communities in Maryland. And we engage our students in every aspect of lawyering, from individual representation to community education to legislative advocacy and policy advocacy. And through this program, his students were exposed to all these types of lawyering, and they excelled in them all. We are also fortunate to do this work at a university that is deeply committed to the community where it lives. The Community Engagement Center here does a wonderful job of partnering with West Baltimore, and we thank them for hosting this event today. Our law students are here each week to offer low-cost legal consultations and referrals to our Justice Advice program, and several of our law faculty work here with the Community Engagement Center in a host of ways. So we look forward to hearing about the success of this program, and we look forward to providing whatever support and resources are necessary to make sure that it's a success. Thank you.
We hope, of course, that this collaboration becomes a model that will be repeated for future endeavors to improve our city and state's justice system. But the hardest part remains to be done, and that's where each of us plays a very important role. We now have to convince a public that's often distrustful of our justice system to trust what we are saying, which is take advantage of this opportunity. Speak to a lawyer, get the lawyer's advice. If you don't want to pursue the recall of a warrant, you don't need to do that. You don't have to appear before a judge. You speak to a lawyer. The lawyer then proceeds by making a motion to the court. It takes the review and approval of the state's attorney's office. It takes a judge who carefully reviews the person's reason for not appearing in court, the charge, and other factors. But this is really a chance, and it begins on January 9th. It continues until January 31st, and we only hope that those of you who are here today will continue to report and to follow this story. Thank you so much for everyone, and especially the University of Maryland people who made all the arrangements so that this could be communicated to the public audience. Oh, yes. Questions, of course. Questions, comments.
Professor Colbert, about trust, but I noticed there's no one here from the judiciary, or at least I don't see anyone. What's to prevent a judge from saying, well, I'm not really going to honor this agreement, I'm just going to toss this person in jail? I mean, what kind of safeguards can you to ensure people who participate in this?
Well, judges can never guarantee outcomes until they've heard the facts of a case. So it's very important that we have a judiciary that's willing to listen, willing to appreciate that these are nonviolent misdemeanor crimes that people are charged with, and to see the justice system as benefiting from people being given a new trial date. People still have to own up and take responsibility for their prior charge. And the judiciary has made it clear that they will give full consideration to each person who steps forward. Bottom line, worst case scenario for a criminal defendant with a failure to appear warrant is that that individual will remain in the same status as he or she began this process. So we're looking forward to the judiciary and to all of the principal players in the system of providing FTA defendants with this chance, second chance, to reappear in court, obtain a new court date, and no longer live vulnerable to arrest 24/7.
Ms. Mosby, I want to ask you a question. You made a very important, well, it seemed to me, conspicuous distinction about this not being forgiveness, warrant forgiveness. Why did you make that distinction?
Because I think it's very clear it's not a forgiveness program. This is not something in which defendants are coming and their warrants, the case goes away. These are where you have outstanding warrants and are given it a second opportunity to say to a judge, hey, I failed to appear on this occasion. Give me my day in court. It's a process in which the prosecutors will be able to look at the case and see if this case is even salvageable, right? If it's not, then yeah, we can extend and utilize our resources in order to get rid of the case. But this is, I think, maximizing the resources again so that we can really utilize our resources to focus on the worst of the worst and not have, the nonviolent offenders and have this burden that's on them in the streets when they come in contact with police, and to have this fear. We have to be able to break down those barriers of distrust. So it's not forgiveness. You're still going to have your day in court. It's a second opportunity, a second chance to clear this up and to get your pursuit and have your day in court in that pursuit of justice. That's what I meant. And the judges are here. I have to say they had a conflict today. I know Doug didn't say anything, but we had a meeting with Chief Judge Morrissey. I have to acknowledge my Deputy of Operations, Valda Ricks. This is a very long process. It took a lot of talking and meeting and agreeing, but everybody is on board, which is one of the reasons why, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council is here to represent all of the public safety stakeholders in Baltimore.
Wouldn't it be just as easy to change the law as it applies to FTAs and misdemeanor crimes rather than just dance around it like we're...
Well, no, because again, it's not dancing around anything. You're still going to have accountability, right? Because some of these cases, victims deserve their day in court as well. It's just unfortunate because if that person is gone for 15 years and is afraid to come to court, that victim never gets their day in court. So it's not dancing around it. These cases don't automatically go away. What we're saying to you is that we want to give you an opportunity again to be able to pursue justice and have your day in court.
Commissioner Davis, could you talk a little bit about because Professor Goldberg talked about the resources that are expended. What kind of savings you think you'll get from maybe having these resolved in ways other than having to send out the warrant apprehension task force to pick up someone on FBA?
Well, Stephen, the warrant apprehension task force goes after violent offenders every day. The offenders that we're talking about that would be eligible to participate in this program are nonviolent offenders who we frankly don't look for actively, but they come into contact with police officers on traffic stops, calls for service, and other chance encounters. And I've been doing this job for 25 years, and on countless times personally, I've had someone run from me on foot or flee in a car only to discover when I caught up with him that he was running because he didn't want to face the FTA warrant that he had. And it's one of those, really? You did all that for that? So I think this is just an effort to recognize those nonviolent offenders who we are not actively searching for because our resources dictate that we have to concentrate on violent offenders in the city. That's where the city wants us to be. That's where we are. So I think really the savings, and it's tough to put a monetary value on anything, but the value in this is trust with the community. And that trust is priceless, in my opinion.
In many cases, these failures deal with people afraid of losing a job. In order for this to work, aren't you going to need the cooperation of employers?
No, this allows people to continue working every day. All they need to do is find a half an hour where they can go to a district courthouse and go directly to a public defender's office, not to a courtroom, but to a public defender's office, talk to the lawyer, then leave the courthouse, return to work or continue working for that day, and wait 2 or 3 weeks until the process runs its course, until the judge makes a final decision. And so in many ways, what Second Chance is doing is what people receive when they're able to afford the cost of a private attorney. If I miss my court date, or if I had issues of child care or being sick that day, I'd call my attorney, I'd call Professor Pennard, and I'd explain to him, I can't make it to court today. I've got a terrible fever. And then Professor Pennard would go in front of the judge and would inform the prosecuting attorney that the defendant's too ill to come to court today. We need a new court date. Well, that doesn't happen as easily with low-income working people or poor people because many times they haven't even yet met or know the name of their assigned attorney. And so what we're trying to do here is to make it possible for people to come into the system, establish that attorney-client relationship, really humanize a situation to make it possible for people to take responsibility, allow the prosecution to prosecute cases or otherwise not prosecute cases, depending upon what the interests of justice call for. But also it allows, I think, the police and prosecution to develop a relationship with community that makes it possible to gain their cooperation when serious crime takes place.
But what you're saying is it's a half hour at the courthouse during normal business hours. For a person who's an hourly employee somewhere, that ends up being
2, 3 hours by the time they get to the courthouse, and they may lose their job if they, have to go to the court during normal business hours.
I think Ms. Julian can address this, but what I would suggest to that individual is call the public defender's office, explain the situation, make some other arrangement that's convenient for you to see a public defender. It could be after 5 o'clock. The public defenders work very hard for their clients, and I would expect, and I'm sure that they will make every adjustment, accommodation needed to make sure that that individual does not lose a job or important working hours.
Is there a deadline on this? How long is the program going to be?
It's going to run about a 3-week period from January 9th to January 31st. And that's why during those 3 weeks, we want everyone to be informed. We want you and everyone here to really pass the word. My students and myself are available to speak to any type of meeting or congregation. I've probably gotten more spiritual enrichment in the last few weeks than I have for most of my life. I've spoken with at homeless shelters and with communities, and we're really available. So that's our job now, and I hope that everyone's job is to continue telling this story and hopefully letting more people know that they can take advantage of this program.
Is there scope to extend it beyond that 31st of January deadline?
There's no plan right now, and I think, again, the judiciary, this entire program would not be taking place without the judiciary participation and approval. To allow for a extraordinary opportunity, a 3-week period, when people are able to come forward, that's really extending judicial courtesies in ways that I think every one of us appreciate. This has not been easy for any of the agencies because we're asking people to do something different. And in the end, when you have a good idea and when you have leadership that's really listening, really doing their best to see what we can do to improve a system, then we can come before you with this Second Chance program. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I know people have very busy schedules today. I don't want to hold them up anymore, but some of us will be around if you have other questions.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate you.